The Sound Off Podcast. The show about podcast and broadcast. Starts now.
Sue, yes. How are you?
Hi, Matt. I'm good, thanks.
How was your first year at NLogic?
It was a whirlwind, and it's hard to believe that it has been a year. I feel like I've barely scratched the surface, but my feeling is optimism. I feel energized. I feel really positive. So I would say good, A+.
As a leader, you're coming into a very top position in a company. So this is more about for anybody who does take over in a position like you're in. Mm-hmm. How do you approach the first year? A lot of people will come in and they'll make wholesale changes from day one, and others like to watch and observe. Mm-hmm. What'd you do?
I was more on the observational side. If we take those two, those two dichotomies, and I'm starting now. It's been a year. It's also budget season this spring. We're on a broadcast fiscal, so there will be more changes into my second year. But I did more observe. Looking back now, I thought, I was less intimidated than maybe I thought I would be in the role. You just have to jump in and go for it and embrace the chaos and embrace the unknown. And something that Neil, the CEO of Numeris, and I talk about a bit as we work on a lot of sort of fundamental changes to the business is being comfortable with only knowing, 50% of what you're talking about. And that makes me comfortable, him saying that and him and I discussing that. And I also think important for a lot of leaders, you can't make fundamental change and meaningful change if you're just working within the parameters of what you really know well, because that's not change. So I would say once I had that philosophy where I'm not going to know everything I'm talking about and doing, and I started to get, it's still uncomfortable sometimes for sure, but embracing that mentality more has made it enjoyable and less anxiety for sure.
I don't know how many times the word came up last time we got together and did this, but the most off phrase or words that we used was multi-platform. Mm-hmm. So how much have you incorporated multi-platform into NLogic, or how much does it come up in meetings into what you do over the last 365 days?
I would say it's in 90% of what I do. A lot of the business. For me, from my level and my job, it's around 90% of the topics of all the meetings I'm in, the discussions I'm in. I've slowly started to pick up my PR presence, and you'll see more of that as time goes on. Now that I'm, feeling a lot more confident, is that's the message that I'm putting out. That's not to say that's 90% of NLogic's business. Absolutely not. I would say it's more of 20%, but it's where we're seeing the vision. So it's not like linear broadcast, TV and radio is central to our business and will continue to be. And it's a part of a cross-platform, multi-platform story. We're not looking at it in isolation any longer. And it's not to decrease its relevance. It's just to show it as a key part of a broader story that goes across screens and across audio.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. So for anybody who's just in TV or just in radio, and then they hear multi-platform, I'm sure the first thing they hear is, oh, I've got a whole lot more work to do now. But if you're just in radio, what does it mean from NLogic's side? You're going to go multi-platform. What else does that include for anybody who might be in terrestrial broadcast?
Yeah, I think for in the video side, I know you said radio, but just to stick with the video side, is their contribution is a piece of a bigger puzzle. So although you may only be operating a channel operator like network TV in Canada, it's going to fit into a cross-platform story. If you're not doing, most of them also, let's be honest, most broadcasters are involved in streaming in some capacity, and I would say most radio broadcasters as well. But even if it doesn't mean that you have to operate the technology of a multi-platform ecosystem from your own company or really understand the ins and outs of it. And, a little selfishly at NLogic, one of the things I'm saying is, we don't produce and distribute content at NLogic. We don't sell or buy advertising at NLogic because we see our broadcast clients and our ad agency clients starting to build tools, analytical tools, and products internally in-house because they're trying to see insights into things that they don't know. And we're saying, you don't have to know how to do that. We actually prefer you don't do that, and you invest your research dollars with us, and we'll solve that problem for you. So if to answer your question, if you're in radio and you only do radio, you're a piece of a bigger puzzle. You're still a piece of that landscape that's important, and we can help connect you to the cross-platform world through numbers. We can plug your radio standalone number to a cross-platform picture.
And so that sort of dovetails well into Video Planner, which you unleashed, I guess, a few months ago. One of the companies that jumped on board right away was Chorus. And I think of what would be a company that this would be perfect for. This would be absolutely perfect for Chorus because I see they've got Stack TV, they've got Pluto, and they've got channels all over the place. Yeah. They've got some terrestrial channels. It could be global news. They've also got apps. So walk me through a little bit about Video Planner and how it solves problems, and feel free to use Chorus because I know a lot of people from Chorus do listen to this podcast.
Yeah, sounds good. And this is going to prep me because I'm actually in Vancouver Monday and Tuesday this week at the BCAB conference, my second year. And I am going to present the planner on stage. So this is helping me get ready for that. I've actually never demoed it myself. Usually the product team does. So should be interesting. But yeah, the Video Planner came out. So it was way back when, about just over a year ago. So maybe 14 months ago, the NLogic team, we have an innovation team in-house. And there was a team tasked to look at the VAM, so video audience measurement data set that was relatively new in market, and see if they could pull out any product ideas, commercial ideas that we could, sell for money out of that data set. And as the team was looking at the data and they'd been showing it to clients as is, one of the first questions they always got asked was, where's the reach and frequency calculator? Because in the TAM, TV audience data or radio audience data, they can do reach and frequency within those as a standalone. But when you get to VAM, there wasn't the capability to do exclusive reach and frequency cross-platform built into VAM on its own. So the team decided to build this calculator, this tool, and it just started internally as I said, an innovation project. So about 12 months later, we are, commercial in market. We did, as you know, sign on, as you just said, Chorus. We've signed on IPG Media Brands as the first agency as well. And for Chorus, as an example, they've run, I don't know the exact number right now, but at least 22 real world scenarios through the planner. And they were what's considered our alpha partner. So they helped us launch this product and worked on some real early stage R&D with it to get it right from a broadcaster point of view. We also have, we'll be having partners from the agency point of view and advertiser as well, because it is meant for all of those client segments. But in the case of Chorus, we would run as a managed service these scenarios, like real campaign scenarios that they want to run advertising scenarios across, as you said, Stack and Pluto and the Global TV app and their linear TV, of course. And they saw strong results with it, which is why they signed on as an early partner. And it helps them sell incremental impressions outside of linear onto their own streaming platforms. They're able to tell a story where you want to hit this, hey, advertiser, you want to hit this specific demographic. We know you're getting them, say, on History TV. Guess what? You can also get them on Pluto. You can also get them on Stack. We can show you that. And you don't have to buy that digital inventory outside of Chorus. You can stay with us and spend more of your budget with us. And obviously that's a story that Chorus likes, and we hope a lot of other clients will like as well.
Yeah, I love that. Going on that multi-platform thing and trying to incorporate ways to do it. I mean, we have a problem in podcasting. We don't know how to count the video side of it. Mm-hmm. You have to deal with YouTube. YouTube has its own way of counting things. And, it's not the same way as, an IAB download, which you need to listen to a minute of this show. So we're doing both here. Mm-hmm. And all I just ask is that when I give you the stats and the downloads for the show, that you don't take the numbers and jam them together, because a YouTube view is just somebody touching play, and a download is somebody who listened for at least a minute. And I don't know how much you would know about this. Maybe I have to speak to somebody in your innovation department. But but what when it comes to counting, is it pretty simple to count? We're just counting impressions, or do we have to sort of aggregate in different ways between, the multi-platforms in order to count?
It's a good question. So, the foundation for the video planner, as I said, is based on VAM. So it's based on the methodology for how video audience measurement, that data set works, which is the TV parts coming from TAM. So this is something I learned also in my first year, is all the acronyms: RAM, TAM, VAM. So
and I think by the last year when we talked, you were talking about all those things, and you had to stop the meeting a few times just to say, remind me what that is.
Yeah, that's a learning curve for sure. But yes, so there is the PPM, as I think you are well aware, the metered service for the TV part. That's how that gets measured. And on the digital side, the streaming side, there's a router that's connect to, or there's a tracking on the router in your home. So it's measuring household consumption. And people ask, like, is it tracking, my banking website and things like that? It's not. It's a whitelisted list of media-based websites. So anything that's self-defined, or Numeris defines as media, it will track that through your internet connection. So, and it's by device. So any mobile phone, any laptop, any computer connected to the Wi-Fi in the home, it tracks that. As far as if you logged on to YouTube, it's a good question. I'm actually not sure, like, when we don't count it. Actually, I do know the answer. We don't do impressions. It's watch time. It's just general tuning. So it's not measured that way.
Tell me a little bit about shifting the company, because I've noticed, and we've talked about, because we do talk outside of, just doing these podcasts, about, NLogic used to just sort of supply data and then we would interpret data. But now it's, which is a bit of a rear view. Hey, this happened and this is where you're at. But now, it says it right in the word planner. We're looking ahead. We're looking at things like, inventory. We're looking, ahead and ways to plan. Why was that important to make that shift? Why was it important for NLogic to make that shift?
Yeah, it's a good question. NLogic, as you said, has historically been very, their main job was to take insights primarily from Numeris, the parent company, and put them out as insights into the market. So, which is great. And of course, we still do that. But we wanted to have more actionable insights, something that can actually turn into eventually an outcome and an ROI for our clients. And insights alone, just the data stats on their own, are just not good enough anymore. We have to get them farther along the campaign cycle. So that is what we decided to do. And also for planning, we saw it was a real fit as we move more into cross-platform, where there are tools out there. And I maybe mentioned this before, although I don't think we talked about the planner much last year. It was barely a thing last year, but agents, there's a handful of other tools specific in the Canadian market, few from agency side. Like, we have a consultant on the team who went out and did quite a bit of market research and everyone has a little way of doing planning within their company, but you'd be surprised. A lot of it's just cutting and pasting results, like campaign results from YouTube or from Meta, from their linear side, mashing it together in spreadsheets into PowerPoint. It's all these hacked together ways of trying to get to campaign planning and measurement. And they're like, yes, please help solve this for us. And we bring the TV part. We bring the currency of the TV part. I know VAM isn't considered currency, but the TAM that feeds into VAM is. And we feel like that is a real unique selling point that we have. And also, there's a lot of what I've learned in the years. You hear it all the time. There's a ton of fragmentation because there's so many ways every digital player measures their own audience, obviously, but that leads to a lot of distrust. And I didn't notice it as much before I came to Numeris because, we just pull a YouTube number and that's the YouTube number. I'm sort of embarrassed to say, but you didn't really question it too much. You might not like the number, but because everyone who activates on YouTube uses that number, you don't really think of it differently. But when you want to look at a piece of content, not just on YouTube, but also on TV and also on a streaming platform, for example, then all of a sudden you want something centralized and you want a company that you feel is maybe third party, neutral. You don't want to hear what's my cross-platform number from Google because you're not going to trust if they were able to see the linear number and see the Amazon number, and they're going to tell you the full story, you don't want to hear that. I'm assuming I shouldn't maybe say that, but you want to hear it from someone neutral, third party. And that's something that's unique, I think, for Numeris and NLogic in the market, because we don't have skin in the game in the sense of we're not biased. Like, we're not owned by a big broadcaster. We're not owned by a platform. We are, data software insights company, and we want to help our clients do better business. So yeah.
It's funny you mentioned that, because Spotify just decided they just don't need IAB certified metrics when it comes to providing their ads or providing their downloads and reporting their data. They decided they want to do it themselves. And you just mentioned a little bit that could lead to distrust. Mm-hmm. And that is something that the podcast business is going to have to figure out over the next little while, about how much they trust, Spotify when it comes to, that form of measurement.
Yeah. I think I see both sides of it. So you have to be able to provide the insights that lead to an improved business result, because I can understand if you're like, oh, thanks, NLogic, you're providing us these insights, and I look at your numbers and it's not helping me drive my business. The numbers are making my business look worse than maybe the internal analytics you're getting from the platform. But you're not helping drive a sales story, and you're not helping the business move along. I can see that complaints. I can see why you wouldn't want to invest in us if we're not improving your situation. So that's where I've really tried to focus the last year on results, being results driven with our clients, really understanding what their challenges are, and trying to help them. And if, reading and interpreting the numbers that we're putting out, if they can't find a story within it, can we help you find a business story, like a sales story that helps focus you in a better light? And that can help them with the planner too. Like, you can pull different demos and we have a part in it called buying segments. So this came from, I don't know if you're familiar with the common industry segments, but these are segments that were put together by Think TV and Veronix and Numeris and Chorus. And they're behavioral targeting. So you could be like a fashionista or a sports enthusiast. So instead of just buying on the adults 18 plus or adults 25-54, you can buy on these behavioral segments. It's a more of a way that digital is bought and sold, but you can kind of test out different buying segments to see what's telling a better story for your inventory. So if you're not getting a big part, if you're using our planning tool and it's not showing you a lot of inventory in a segment, maybe try another segment and like try to get it so that you're looking good with the numbers.
I know that I don't think anybody's actually asking this question, but I will say that people are probably saying, oh, well, what are you doing for audio? And I'm here to say that most of what is done for audio, whether it's like ad tracking or anything like that, is already available and has already been done. You're just reflecting the rush to video. And there's been a huge rush to video for just about everything. We've seen the explosion of TikTok and Reels. Facebook abandoned podcasting and they pushed in on video. Multi-platform, when we talk about multi-platform, we're really talking about the different ways that video gets distributed. People are creating video all the time. Am I right in saying that most of the conversations are really about harnessing video and how it's distributed and counting it these days?
I mean, yes.
Inside NLogic.
For NLogic, yes. When we say cross-platform, it means video in all its formats and in any way you can watch and listen to it. The cross media, I mean, small distinction. I would say when we say cross media, that would include, audio. We don't work in print, as you know. We don't work at a home or anything like that. So it's really just audio, video for us. For the planner, I want to say this too. If the market comes to us, like if our radio broadcaster clients and agencies say, hey, can you include audio in the planning tool? We can do that. It is an item on our roadmap, and we're waiting to have it triggered by one of our clients asking us to prioritize and move it forward. So if someone comes to us and say, hey, I would love to see what this audience looks like across linear TV, the pure play streamers, social video, and radio, we can add radio in there. We need there to be a market demand for that. And I think on the advertising side, it's less common. It's a less common need to plan a ad campaign across video plus radio. It just doesn't come up as much in my experience, but an ad planner buyer would have to tell you for sure. But if there is a need, we can definitely start to prioritize and put that into the roadmap for our video planning tool.
A couple of the fun webinars that have passed through on your website in the last little while include, and I know the pandemic ended in May of 2023. It's over.
Declared over, yeah.
Yeah, but you still got some data that shows things about our shopping habits. And I will preface is, we would get a ratings book in and we would look at the data and we'd say, okay, we have to remember that is a snapshot of a particular time when the data was collected. And we're 2 or 3 months down the road from there. Who knows where we're at now, but that is a snapshot of where it's at. But you're very good at NLogic about taking those snapshots and then presenting them to people and then finding a little bit of trends as well. So the pandemic and shopping, a lot of people have stopped talking about the pandemic, but yet it's still a thing with audience. And we can see a lot of little changes that have happened in the last little while.
Yeah, so that you're referring to a blog post we put up coming out of our RTS data, which is consumer insights data. So a little plug to that. We do have a consumer insights product called Sales Pro that uses RTS. And this is a sample size, I think it's 30 or 40,000 people this is survey-based information on behavior. And it's really, really strong. Admittedly, I don't think as a company use it to its full potential. So that is something that I'd love to dive into and see what kind of products we can pull out of it and make it stronger. But yes, so the pandemic info came out of that survey. I don't remember it was the fall of the spring. There's 2 of them. I don't remember which one, but it was talking about how the surge in online shopping and talking about specific categories that were better or worse on that.
So when you look back at that, and by the way, you do not have to refer to this study to answer this next question.
Okay, thanks. I don't know all that well.
No, but you're the perfect person to answer this question. And do you think the pandemic accelerated what was going to happen anyway?
In media?
Yeah, in media and buying habits, shopping habits. Did it just accelerate it or did it change it?
That's a great question.
You're allowed to say both.
I think it accelerated it, if I had to choose. I think there was I think it accelerated. I think there would have been that shift to online, a huger shift to a bigger shift to online shopping. It was inevitable and it sped it up. And then once people invested in having better online shops and moving their business to Shopify and for smaller players and just like staffing up for the bigger e-com businesses, they were able to sustain. Although there were some businesses, I mean, I just mentioned Shopify, and that's a Canadian superstar, and thinking that they ended up, I don't remember when, but had to do quite a few layoffs. So some people overinvested, being very optimistic with the pandemic, and then had to scale back their teams because they weren't able to meet those financial goals that they had set or predicted. But I would think we are generally in society that operates online. I mean, I wish some ways it weren't, just seeing even how I feel like I work my kids into every interview that I do, but seeing how they, interact with each other and most of their social activity is done online. And to be honest, most of it is done on TikTok and Snapchat. And I have a 10, 13-year-old. And I think about it all the time when I think about media and how we have to have media and buying behavior, as you're saying. And despite what we may think, like, oh, you get older and you change your habits, you do, but you don't lose that exposure that you had earlier on in your life. And I think that's very hard for our demographic to understand because we didn't really have we certainly didn't have the internet the way that they have it, and social media, we didn't have it at all. Well, I didn't have it growing up. So you can't really compare that. I'm not impacted as a midlife because I didn't have that exposed to me 10, 15. And my point is, I think when I hear this a lot in panels and things is that, oh, as you get older, you're switched to big screen. You'll be on the glass when you're older. Yes, of course, you'll have some more money, disposable income. You'll pay for more services. You might subscribe to linear, but you're still going to be heavily, heavily influenced and involved, I think, in the social behaviors that you grew up with and your social media behaviors, whatever those platforms are. I'm not saying this platforms are going to stay the same, but you're going to have a different experience. I think that was just a really long tangent I went on, but
but a good tangent.
Yeah, I think if I heard this at a talk a few weeks ago, if you don't have people in your strategy team and your senior level teams that are 30 and under, you're missing the boat. You're not getting a perspective that's going to drive the economy and drive media in the next decades, because it is so fundamentally different. And I said I notice it. I notice how they interact with media, how they watch TV, which sometimes they're always two screens and commenting on it through their friends on social. It's just a different way of experiencing it that I think that upper echelons of broadcasting and agencies aren't always considering.
Are you double screened when you are watching television?
Sometimes I am. I am not the worst for this. I do have friends though who are double screened always. I actually do get quite absorbed in TV shows and movies, so I like to stay focused. It's actually one of my key ways of relaxing at the end of the day. It's just jump into another world for an hour or so. So no, I don't do it as much unless I'm not scrolling on socials. If I have a few like quick work emails to finish, have to text my mom, something like that, I'll do. But I'm generally not mindlessly scrolling and watching TV. No.
So I have a couple double box experiences. Sports generally. So if the whistle goes during a hockey game, I might say something. Yeah. Definitely football. When football is on, I'll make some comments. Mm-hmm. And The Bachelor. So in The Bachelor, I mean, there's a whole Bachelor chit chat that goes on, cracking jokes and saying things, and it's quite humorous. So there are some fun double box experiences, and those are primarily done on X, because I think that's really one of the only real time social platforms that's out there.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry about that. Are you a gamer? Do you play video games?
I do not.
Me neither. But that's another. I mean, I think I just missed the boat by a few years on that, because my younger brother and his group is very into it. No, I don't. But that's another thing I don't think we're considering enough, is just gamification and media and social and gaming, and how impactful they're going to be to the younger generations.
And Twitch.
Yep, for Twitch. Sure, live. Yeah.
What's the innovation team working on these days?
Well,
if you can talk about that.
Sure. This is some pretty specific things I'll throw at you, but in the video planner, which I keep talking about, I have narrowed down things to this planning tool, because we have a lot of our existing products in market that drive a huge majority of the business. So I can't have a lot of staff on the net new exciting projects, but we did prioritize this one because we really want it to make it successful in market, and the pipeline looks great on it. So I have high hopes. But one of the caveats to VAM as the foundational data is that it's not national. And I'm well aware of this as I head to BCAB next week in Vancouver. And Numeris will be working. They are working on a national coverage, but it's still a ways out. Timeline's not announced yet. So the NLogic team is modeling out a national audience using machine learning, AI, data science in advance of the official rollout from Numeris. So they're working on that. And I would say that's one of our top priorities through the innovation team right now. Requires a lot of work from data science expertise, which is not a background that really anyone in, you might be surprised, but it's not a skill set that NLogic has hired in the past. So it's an opportunity, and yet a hole that we're filling. And I said this, actually, we hosted an event on the 17th in April in Toronto. It was the first event, of course, for me. It was literally on the day of my anniversary. I talked to you about this last week when we were chatting. And I said, if you have kids in university age or getting there, I recommend you encourage them to go into data science, because it's, everyone's hiring for this type of role right now in every business, not just media. It's everywhere. So yeah, so the national coverage for the planner, modeling that out is a big project that the team's working on. And another area, again with the planner, that we aren't able to crack yet, that we're trying to model out, is For us, we're really focused, probably not a surprise coming from a linear background, on premium streaming. So that broadcaster-enabled streaming, which they like to be called, in addition to BVOD. So broadcaster-enabled streaming, plus, Amazon, Netflix, Disney, etc. And as they go to what we would call like a mixed subscription ad-based, and they have ad tiers being announced, like Amazon in February launched their ads in Canada. The planning tool is supposed to show you where should you put your ad money to run pre-roll, mid-roll ads. And if, say, it's Netflix and you're just going by watch time or share of audience, it's going to show a huge percentage because a lot of people watch Netflix in Canada, but it's going to be deceiving because not all that watch time is ad supported because a lot of people aren't in the ad tier. So we need to be able to show what percentage can you actually buy ads on. So that's something we're trying to model out as well with the team. And no one has that answer right now. The individual platforms know, but that's not shared and with a central place like NLogic. So we're working on national representation with the planner because we're only Quebec Franco in Ontario right now. That does, however, make up 60% of Canada proportionally. But of course, we want to have local representation. And then what we're calling the ad factor. So to be able to simulate percentage of ad supported inventory on these hybrid platforms.
Well, Sue, I wish you luck at the BCAB, and anytime that you're rolling out, your video ad planner. I think you did very well as the rehearsal. By the way, comedians use podcasts for rehearsing their bits, and it's great to know that you're doing the same thing here.
Thank you. Are we wrapping up? Is this we're getting to the end here?
Yeah, we are.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you, Matt. Thanks for having me back.
It's good. No, and by the way, did we do video last time?
No, we didn't. Actually, we talked about it, and I was talking about content strategies on YouTube and TikTok and things for my previous job. And you said, well, maybe next year we'll record you. And I was like, okay. And here it is. I actually I dressed a little bit nicer today, just in case people see me, in addition to hearing me.
Yeah, well, we talk a lot about the jump into video, and yet here we are. We're doing this now on video, so it's the first time that you and I have gotten together and done this on video. And of course, the video technology has accelerated to the point where here we are in high definition.
I will hopefully get you a few extra video impressions on this podcast.
Sue, thanks so much for doing this. Really appreciate you taking the time, and good luck in year 2 at NLogic.
Thanks, Matt.
The Sound Off Podcast is written and hosted by Matt Kundle. Produced by Evan Serminski. Edited by Chloe Emo Lane. Social media by Aiden Glassy. Another great creation from the Sound Off Media Company. There's always more at soundoffpodcast.com.